What's up guys, welcome to the first episode of Cooking with Ashnag. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make epic gamer burgers. So let's just jump into it. Today we're going to need a barbecue, we're going to need a little scrapey thingy, we're going to need some tongs, and we're going to need these beef patties. So this is just for step one. We're also going to need some other things, but I'll tell you those things later. Now as you can see here, there should be a little green knob, and you're just gonna wanna turn that a little bit. There we go. Just really get that gas going, you know. Now that we've got that gas going, pump that in, and then you're just gonna turn it up to high. Now we should have it cooking. And so what you're going to do is you want to let the barbecue heat up, and then what you're going to do is you're going to start scraping any of the excess fat and oil into like we're going to scrape it all away, because we don't want nasty stuff in our burgers. Okay, so now that's done, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our burgers ready. So, take meat patty number 1. I'm gonna put it on there. Alright. And then we're gonna take meat patty number 2 and put it on there. And now we're going to take meat patty number 3 and put it on there. And you'll never guess what we're going to do next. We're going to take meat patty number 4 and put it on there. Now we wait. Okay, so now that they're brown on this side, we're going to we flipped them, and so now we're going to let them continue to cook. Epic gamer style. Don't they smell delicious? So now what we're going to do is, now that they're nearly ready, we're going to take 2 pieces of cheese, or as much cheese as you want, maybe 1 will be enough. You know what? We're going to break it in half first. That's a good amount, I think. We're just going to put it on. I'm only making 2 burgers, these 2 are going away. So I'm only going to put cheese on these 2. Alright, so this is pretty much done. So what we're going to do is going to turn the temperature down, but not all the way off, because what we're going to do next is cook some bacon. So we're going to put that there. So now what we're going to do, now that it's all nice and melted, is going to avoid getting burnt. We're going to try and scrape all the fat away again, so to make room for the bacon. Little Miss Greedy Guts over here smelt that I was cooking, and had to stop by. Hey Phoebes, say hi. Sit. High five. High five. High five. Come on. Yes, good girl. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take some bacon. We're going to stick it on. I'm going to stick as many as you want on. I think that 4 is always a good amount, because it doesn't quite overshadow the beef, but also gives you a good amount of bacon. While that's cooking, what we're going to do is going to take some sauce of your choosing. Some might choose tomato, some might choose mayonnaise. I choose barbecue sauce because Australia. But yeah, we're just gonna get that on there nice and good. Oh, wait. If you're a disgusting healthy person, you could even put some lettuce on. That's been cooking for a little bit now. Let's just check it. Nope. We're gonna have to keep cooking. Alright, that's starting to look a bit better. Keep in mind that even if you don't think it's completely cooked, flipping it over will still have it cook on both sides a little bit. Of course, safety first. What we're gonna do, now that we've finished with the bacon, we've got to turn the gas off. Now for the final step in the process, you take the top half and you put it on the bottom half. That's how things work. This beautiful, handcrafted, straight from the barbecue, Epic Gamer Burger is better than anything McDonald's has ever put out. And it's even healthy. Checkmate. Knackers.
Oh, hey! What's poppin', cool kids? I'm Johnny Cool Kid, and I'm here to tell you about healthy eating! Wow!
Uh-oh, here comes Fatty McFatface with his stupid cake. Might want to put that down, buddy. Think of the calories.
But it's got banana in it.
That doesn't make it healthy, you moron. Now you best put that down.
Can you believe that, Fatty? Doesn't you know that sugar's bad for you?
This is really good.
So, as I was saying, sugar's really bad for you guys.
Have one on my face? Oh shoot, cut the cameras!
But Johnny Cool Kid, I hear you saying at your screens, I love sugary treats. Well, I sure don't. Can't relate. Hashtag what? But I know what you're thinking. Sugary treats are great from time to time. So you need to keep in mind that if you've eaten loads of sugary treats today, you shouldn't have any more. So what can I do instead of eating sugary treats? Well, that's easy. Just find something like this. It's a mango. It's really sweet, and it's like a sugary treat, and then you can eat it, and it's sweet. How many times do I have to say sweet before I get my point across? Fruit is the greatest thing ever. And remember, kids, to eat your 5 a day. That's 5 different fruits and veggies every single day. Don't believe me that fruit is the greatest thing ever? Watch!
That's disgusting.
I mean, this is the greatest thing I've ever eaten! Yeah! You also need to remember, kids, that you need to exercise if you want to keep a healthy body like this!
Uh-oh, here comes Fatso again, playing some more video games, and that is not healthy.
I've already been to the gym today. I don't want to do any more exercise.
I don't care, Fatty McFatface.
Can you stop calling me Fatty McFatface?
No!
Like, I don't even weigh that much. I mean, I'm a bit tubby, but...
I don't care!
Fat.
Get your lazy butt outside now!
I don't want to exercise.
I don't care! I stopped feeling emotions a long time ago.
Let's start with some starch-ups! So, what have we learned, kids? Well, we've learned that it's healthier to eat mangoes instead of chocolate. And we've also learned to do lots of exercise and stay hydrated.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Cooking with Ashnag episode 2. Today we're going to be cooking an omonomlet. So let's just jump right into it. So what you're going to need to make an I can't remember. Whatever. So you're going to need a bowl. You're going to need a frying pan. You're gonna need milk, you're gonna need eggs, and you'll need ham, and you'll need cheese. So what you do is you get your bowl, and you get your eggs, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna get as many eggs as you want, and you're just gonna, you know, chucking them in there. 4 eggs, why not? So you're just gonna move those to the side, and you wanna make sure that you just, there you go, much better. And then obviously you don't want eggshells in your thing, so you're just gonna, and then what you're gonna do is, you get your milk, and you just pour some of that in, and what you're gonna do, you're gonna get some ham, okay, so what you wanna do is you wanna get some ham, and you just, and then you get some more ham if you want. I mean, if you're fan ham fan. So yeah, that's pretty great. And then the last thing you're gonna want to put in there is some cheese. Now, some people are like these Puritans. They like to put cheese, like, that's been grated and all that. I don't believe in grating cheese. I don't like the idea of having to take my food and shove metal in it. I am a massive fan of clean workspaces. I'm a massive fan of just being overall as careful as you can be with your cooking. Alright, so now that you've done that, you're going to take the bowl and we're going to put it in the pan. Okay, so you've got the mixture here. So what you're going to do is you're going to get some oil, and you're just going to spray the pan. Make sure that it's all nice and lubed up, so when you go to put the mixture on, it'll be all good. So now what you got to do is you got to get fire, because how are you going to cook without fire? Like, you can't cook with, like, electricity. That's dumb. Whoever thinks to themselves, I'm gonna cook with electricity. So what you want to do is you want to push this button. Wait, sorry, no, you hold it down. Okay? And then you take this one, because it's the center, and you push it in, and you turn it. Fire! I did it! I did it, Mum! And so now we have fire, as you can clearly see here. What you want to do is you want to take our beautiful piece of art, and we're just gonna do that. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get this. I'm gonna. Alright, we'll make sure it doesn't stick. And now we wait. Alright, so now that's done, you're gonna get this, and you're gonna, now any good omelette should be completely flat. Just like, you want your omelette to just be like a pancake, sort of like an egg sort of pancake. So as you can see, we're making sure that this is as flat as possible. And so now you're pretty much done. So you turn the stove off, and then you're ready to go put it on a plate. Oh, look at that beauty. It's truly a work of art. This beautiful, handcrafted, straight from the stove, it's still not, Omonomlet. This beautiful, straight from the stove omelette is better than anything any restaurant has ever put out. Checkmate. Restaurants.
What's poppin', cool kids? I'm Johnny Cool Kid, and I don't know if you know this, but there's a deadly virus going around. So you need to stay indoors. And if you don't, well, you're not a cool kid. So I thought I would take this 20 minutes out of my day to teach you, yes, you, on what to do in your quarantine time. Epic stuff!
Step 1, paint a picture. Step 2, do some exercise.
3, 2, 1. Help! I can't swim! I can't.
Step 3, stay in touch with friends and family.
Yes. Good morning, Dr. Brown. So you got the results in. Positive. Good. I have cancer.
Hey kids! Let's move on to step 3, staying in touch with friends and family. I'm gonna go call my wife. Hey honey! Divorce? What do you mean? This is my real voice. Okay. I'm gonna have to call you back. let's move on to step 4.
Step 4 is play with your pets.
I love you.
Tasty. Step 5 is climb a tree.
I'm hungry.
Step 6, learn a life skill.
Like lawnmower racing. 3, 2, 1.
Step 7, read a book.
Read a book. With today's sponsor, Audible.
Step 8, go for a walk.
So, I hope all of these tips have helped you stay more entertained, epic styles during your quarantine. Please excuse me, I just gotta go talk to my wife.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Cooking with Ashnag episode 3. And today we're going to be learning how to make lemonade. So let's just jump into it. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a lemon juicer. You're going to need these yellow apple things. You're gonna need a knife. You're gonna need a heat-proof jug. Look, heat-proof. You're gonna need a measuring cup, whichever one you want. You're gonna need sugar, and you're gonna need soda stream and a jug. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get this. You're gonna get this jug. And you're gonna plug it in, and then you hit the little switch thing, and then it becomes hot. And then what you do is you get this, and you put it next to it while it cooks.
And now we wait.
Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna get this heat-proof heat thing, and then you're gonna fill this 1 cup full of the hot stuff, and then you pour that in. And then what you do is, now this part's for safety purposes, you dry it off a bit, and then you get your sugar, and then you get you get a 1/4 cup of sugar. Yep. And then you pour the sugar into the cup of not sugar, and then you stir it with a knife. And then what you do is you just keep stirring it with the knife until it's watery again and not sugar. Anyway, so then what you do is you move that, and then you get this, I don't know what it's called, and you get this, and see, I don't know why, but they always like put little stickers, just, you do something with them. And then what you do is you get the knife, and you just and then just, alright, and then that should be beautiful. And then you stick that on there, And then what you do is you juice it like they do in the televisions, and that gets all of the lovely juices and the lovely juices. And then do the same here. And then you need to do that until this little thing is full. So here's a montage of getting the lemon pee-pee.
Your phone on mine.
Ow, no!
Did it all go everywhere? Oh my god, you klutz.
Shut up. Got lemon juice in my eye.
Oh my god.
It's a good thing we're still filming. Oh, it's all gone. Oh, can you go get me the sponge?
I can't remember this. Catch.
Still filming.
Yes.
Good.
So what's that kind of fridge and use some
Okay, good.
epic
Gamer.
slap one.
It's both the same one.
Oh mother. Slap like
Good
on
enough.
this video or I slap your mother.
So in the process of getting the lemon juice, I kind of spilt it a little bit, and I had to redo it a couple of times so we get all of these lovely lemon decorations. So we got half a cup of lemon, which is great. So what you do with the mace is you pour it into hot water. And then you let it cool. Yeah. And so now you need 2 cold water cups. 1 and 2. Okay, so what you need to do is carefully pour your creation into the SodaStream bottle. Hashtag not spun. What you do is you get SodaStream and you stick the thing there. So now that you've done that, do this part.
Uh-oh.
Now this part's dangerous because, yay. And boom, lemonade! This beautiful, handcrafted, straight from the SodaStream, epic lemonade is better than anything Schweppes or Sprite have ever put out. Checkmate. Sprite. Hi, my name is Gabriels, 6 years old. I'm here at Something or Other Beach. The time is 7:78 in the afternoon, and I'm gonna spend the next 24 hours here with nothing, no resources. Let's just do it. So obviously, my first plan of attack is going to be I need shelter. Luckily for me, backpack fuck. Structurally sound. Good. any good survivor man needs a way to protect himself, so my idea is that I find sharp rocks that I can fashion a spear out of. So I ran into a bit of a roadblock. Obviously all of these sticks would be great. There's only one problem with them, and they keep breaking whenever I snap them. So I had a better idea. I was just casually looking around, and I came across this. It is a branch from a very rare type of tree from Czechoslovakia. I don't know how it ended up here at whatchamacallit beach, but you know, I'm not complaining. And so now I've just got to figure out a way that I can fasten the spearhead to the spear. So I was looking for something to fasten the spearhead onto the spear when I came across this ream of duct tape. So yeah, I guess that's what we're going to be using. I say we go hunt for some food. Let's go spear fishing. Home delivery. And I just want to emphasize to all of you how stranded I am. I mean, look, I'm not even mic'd up, okay? Like, I'm completely and utterly stranded. I am stranded, okay? Look, I'm so stranded my spear broke, alright? Any good survivor man will know how to start a fire, but if you're uninitiated, here's how you do it. You take a good soft piece of timber, and you take another piece of wood, and you just, you know, start really spinning it. Really start spinning. Really start. Really start. What you're going to do is you're just going to start spinning it like this. Keep in mind it needs to be 2 pieces of wood. And what this is going to do is friction is going to cause heat. The heat is going to start a fire. Then once the fire started, you've got all of those sticks to you know, keep it burning. And yeah, so it's just spinning. You get the picture. So while the fire's cooking, I came across this straw, and you know, starting a fire is thirsty work, so I'm going to show you how to get the best quality water out of your ocean. misconception about being a survivor man or woman is that it's about brute force. It's not. It's about mental strength and it's about discipline. The best ways I try to gather myself in a situation like this is through meditation, mindfulness. Yep. I don't care what he did, Byron. Probably tell, it's starting to get a bit windy. So, all you need to do is make sure that you stay warm and comfortable. The best way to do this is by making a pillow. So what you're going to want to do is take some grass or some weeds or whatever, and you're just going to want to make a pillow. You get some sort of string or something. You're just going to fasten it. There you go. Ow! I have my teeth. I'm gonna have to call my dentist. Alrighty. So now we've got this beautiful pillow. Oh yeah. Look at that. It also makes a lovely head piece. And then, now the only thing we really need to do is find some means of warmth. Now that you're full belly, got warm, it's time you can go to bed for the night and hope for rescue. Next time you don't travel. The wild is cruel and unforgiving, you know? It's not for the faint of heart. Like, I ate through that pizza in what, 10 minutes? I was ravenous. Anyway, I want you to keep this in mind next time you're stranded on a deserted island. As always, stay safe. Pretty impressive, huh? Hi, I'm Phillip McSporty, and today I'm going to help you with your exercising routine. So let's do it. Push-ups. Now push-ups are pretty simple, but they're also quite difficult for people who maybe aren't quite as fit. So, but they are quite simple. So what you do is you get into this position, and then you use your toes to go like that, and you just lift your body down and up. Let's see you try. Excellent. All right. So let's try that again. Oh yeah. Feel that burn. Keep going. Excellent work. I can't do this, man.
Come, just do it for the views. Do it for the views.
It's all worth it.
Do it for the views.
Do it for the views! Alright, so this next thing is parkour. Now this might not apply to everybody, but if you've got a backyard with a wall like this, this will work. Now if you don't know what parkour is, basically it's where you go from point A to point B as creatively as possible. And the way I like to do this is through rock climbing. That was a lot of fun. So basically you just gotta do that over and over again. It's a lot of fun, but you need to make sure that you're trained, all right? Me, I'm a trained professional, so I can do that, but it's very good for you. Let's move on to the next one. So, that does it for the cardio segment of this training video. Now we're gonna be moving on to fitness you can do with a partner. So, if you've got a family member or a friend, yeah. So please welcome my partner. Hello. All right, sir. So, tell us, what's your name?
Pedro.
Nice to meet you, Pedro. So, today you are gonna be. Look. All right, Pedro. So today you're gonna be my partner in doing some boxing. Is that all right? What do you mean, no? Pedro! Pedro! Pedro, get over here! Got ya. This next thing that we're going to be doing is boxing. This is why you need two people. Now, obviously, if you have a punching bag, that'll also work. I said shut! Now, obviously, if you have a punching bag, that'll also work. And usually you should be wearing gloves, but I'm a professional, so you know. Don't try this at home, kids. So, I'm going to take my volunteer Pedro, and we're going to do some boxing. All right. So first, you're going to get into fighting stance. So you're gonna have one foot in front of the other and one foot for protection. This means if they push you, you can lean back on that leg. And you're gonna... And so, now that you're in position, you're gonna have your face like this. That means if they punch you, you can block it with your fists. All right, so a good jab should come from your shoulders. So, here is a good jab. Alright, so I obviously didn't make contact, I'm just being a little bit safe. So, let's see you try. Excellent, alright. So, I'm gonna aim at both my foot over here. So, alright. So, that was a very firm hit. Like I said, it comes from the shoulders and it comes from your weight. So you sort of want to get up! So, let's see you try. Imagine that Pedro's standing right next to you. Isn't that funny, Pedro? I said, isn't that funny, Pedro? He's alright. So, practice on my good partner. So, you go, jab, jab, up. Alright, let's see you try it. Yeah. Oh, I'm so proud of you. You're getting this down so well. Oh, I could use this towel as sort of like a mat. What are you doing? Get back here. Oh, damn it. No. Oh, my leg. Pedro! So we are here at whatchamacallit Beach because this next tip is going to require some rocks or some dumbbells. So if you're looking for more of a natural exercise, come down to a rocky area where there are some good rocks and just find a decently sized, you know, chunky, just not too heavy, just rock that you can like lift over your head. Oh, cranky. This one's a bit heavy, but you know what, I'm a professional. Oh my goodness. I'm a professional, so I can do this. And you're just gonna, all right, so I'm just gonna, 1, 2, oh, come on. Oh, okay, no, that one's too heavy. Because of how, I know that one was quite small, but because of how thick it was, that gave it all of its weight. So we're gonna use a thinner rock. One. Okay. Let's see you try. Yeah, that's good. So how about we just get a smaller rock. There we go. Oh, it's still really heavy. Look. Oh, you got the picture. Now that you've been doing loads of exercise, guns should be burning. You've got to do some sort of relaxation. And so, what I'm gonna do, well, I'm gonna take my shoes off first, safety first. Just gonna go stand on one of these rocks and just meditate, all right? I'm scared of water! I'm scared of water! I'm gonna die! Alright, so this area is also really good if you want to do more of that rock climbing or the parkour. It might be a bit slippery, so keep that in mind. But yeah, so meditation, as I demonstrated, very important. The heck? Hang on, I recognize this. That looks weirdly familiar. Is that Pedro? Is that you? Get over here! Get over here! Oh, I'm so gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him. Get over here! Is he taking off his shirt? Oh my goodness, I'm gonna kill him. Pedro, get over here! Get over here! No, wait, give me that! No, that's not yours! That's not yours! Wait, no. Ow! Oh, no, please stop!
Pedro is the champion.
Well, you couldn't speak English.
Fool. Fool.
So that was my tutorial on how to stay fit. Subscribe for more tutorials.
Okay, and we are rolling. Yikes. Yesterday, I asked you, what should I do for this, the 500th episode of Yiay? Here are your Yiayest answers. Apologize, apologize, apologize 500 times. No. Nude Yiay, nude Yiay, nude Yiay, nude Yiay, nude Yiay, nude. Hey, quit fapping. Hey, hey, hey. Now back to things I should do for Yiay 500. Pull an old yeller on dogs.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 saddest animal deaths.
Take 500 shots whilst reading Yiay answers. I'm gonna shoot your dad in the mouth. Charge people $10 to watch it. Make a compilation of the best answer for the past 499 Yiays. I do believe it was this exact tweet that did lead me to make precisely what you just asked for. But if you don't have 90 minutes to spare, I would like to share with you the top 10 best Yiay answers of all time. The last thing I should do for Yiay 500 is give you the raw footage of a Yiay and let you make a Yiay out of it.
Wait a minute. That's what I'm doing.
Hey now, you're an all-star, get your game on, go play.
What's up guys, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Ashnag, and today we're going to be making a super healthy, super tasty, and super epic fruit salad with my all-new assistant, Jonas. Say hi to the camera, Jonas.
Hello.
Alright, so this episode is going to be really easy, especially for you guys that are starting to begin cooking, because it doesn't take a lot of ingredients and it doesn't take a whole lot of time. This is just a fantastic meal if you just need a quick breakfast or even a snack. So let's just jump right into it. So basically what you're gonna need is get out of shot, damn it Jonas. Alright, you're gonna need, now this is the only part where I don't know how to teach you guys how to do it, but I basically made this yogurt mix earlier. Some vanilla yogurt, you're gonna need a tomato, you're gonna need a banana, you're gonna need some mandarins, you're gonna need a lemon, you're gonna need some carrot, and you're gonna need a lime. And a knife.
So what you want to do is you want to slice up the tomatoes.
Alright, so now that you've got the sliced tomatoes, you're just going to put it in with the vanilla yogurt. And then give that a mix.
Okay, so the next step is to slice the banana in half. Let me just...
Alright, so then you're just gonna wanna, and so then you just take the banana and just put it straight into the mixture.
Okay, so now guys, we're gonna be peeling the mandarin.
Now just slice the rest of the fruit. Now that you've got all the fruit you want into your yogurt, you just give it a good old mix. Now for the final step, oil the pan. Light the fire. And add in your ingredients. Did you hear something? Oi! What the hell? No! Get back here! Move! Ah! And that was how to make a fruit salad.
What an amazing meal!
Yeah.
This sucks.
What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today is a little bit of a different video. It's not so much a speed run, but I wanted to see if I could do Deadlocked from Geometry Dash in one attempt. So this is purported to be the hardest main level in the game. Obviously that isn't taking into account community-made levels. But this is purported to be the hardest one, so, and as you can see, I have beaten it before, but I want to see if I can do it again. So yeah, let's see if I can do it in one attempt. Bit of lag. Alright, so let's see. Now this first part isn't too easy, I've done it a ton of times. Let's get the key. Sorry guys, got a bit distracted there. Alright. I think I might actually be able to do it, you guys. Okay, well, okay, final stretch. Okay. I did it! I didn't think I would actually be able to do it first attempt. Oh, and because I was gonna have this funny gag where I made it obvious that I kept dying, and I made it look like that I had actually done it first attempt, but I didn't even need to. I actually did it on my first attempt. Okay, if you want to see more of these Geometry Dash challenges, definitely let me know, because I think they're just as fun as doing the speed runs. But speaking of the speed runs, I will have more of those on the channel very soon. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, and as always, God bless. Happy Halloween, gamers! Whoops. I thought today was October 31st. It turns out it's actually June 31st. forgive me, they both have letters in their names. But can you really blame me for confusing the two when... This video is probably the hardest video I've ever had to do, because I had to sit down and waste 37 minutes of my life watching Shed 17. But before I completely deconstruct this complete disgrace of a horror film, some context if I may. About 3 or 4 years ago, I got really nostalgic over Thomas the Tank Engine, which was my favourite show when I was a little kid, and promptly rewatched the first 5 seasons, watched a bunch of fan films, reviews, and particularly a lot of the Wooden Railway fan content. And in my ventures into this, frankly, stupid fandom, I came across a little fan film called Shed 17. And by little, I mean massive. This movie scared me so much at the time that I literally could not watch the original show because my vision of the series had been tainted by it. And now, due to my own morbid curiosity and general self-hatred, I pushed myself to sit down and watch the full movie. I went into this movie with really low expectations, and I will admit, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. The voice acting was good, and the story structure surprised me with how much content it could fit into its relatively short length. It flows extremely nicely, and it feels like a real documentary. My main problem with it is the rest of the damn movie. So sit back, relax, get your heart rate questionably high, because I'm about to share with you my thoughts on Shed 17, and how it fails at nearly everything it tries to be. Quick side note, there is a sequel to the movie called Project G1 that I haven't seen yet. It also has this thing in it, so I'm not really in a hurry to watch it, so I won't be discussing it in this video, aside from a couple of comparisons, but I have noticed that it is substantially better, at least from what I've personally watched. The animation is improved, the scares are a lot better, and it's just generally a more enjoyable watch. Unless you count the deleted scene with train molestation. Classy. But enough dilly-dallying, onto the review. Part 1. Just what the hell is this thing? So my first issue with the film is its lack of clarity on what the genre is. Now you may say, it has children being hit by trains and being turned into machines that deconstruct from the inside. It's a horror film. And I'd be inclined to agree. Problem is, the creator doesn't seem to agree. Paul Vids has gone on the record saying that the film is a black comedy. So, is the movie funny? Spoiler alert, no. I've always hated the notion that comedy is subjective. I mean, technically it is, but I think there's more to it than that. To say comedy is subjective implies that there aren't good and bad forms of comedy, which is about as true as the time that Eve accused Adam of cheating. Look me in the eye and tell me that you really think that Twitter meme accounts provide better quality comedy than Bo Burnham or John Mulaney. And guess what, buddy? I'm a disembodied voice, so you literally can't look me in the eye and tell me that. Get dunked on, atheist. Now, I have a pretty dark sense of humor, but even I didn't find anything funny to laugh at here. There were like 2 reoccurring gags, and neither of them were particularly funny. The first gag is our audience surrogate Keith, a train conductor being interviewed for the documentary and vomiting whenever Thomas is brought up. And the second is a play on the fact that all of the characters are made of wood, because in the TV show from the 80s, all of the human characters were wooden puppets. This is seen when the German scientist Wilhelm Gotz committed suicide and sawdust sprays everywhere. And look, this is a bit nitpicky, but how come if all of the characters are made of sawdust, it's only seen if a human dies? But when an engine dies, it's just blood. We know the engines are humans with internal organs and muscles, so why doesn't sawdust fly everywhere when one of them dies? Well, obviously, it's for the shock value, but it doesn't make much sense logically. But I digress. And you could make the argument that the film is supposed to be funny in its inherent premise. So with all of that said and done, I'd hesitate to call this a black comedy, because the only really funny part is the subversion of a children's show character actually being dead people biofused into mechanical bodies and promptly dying gruesomely. But that stops being funny after the first death or two. The joke wasn't funny enough to warrant stretching it out for a nearly 40-minute movie in my opinion. So when all is said and done, it's closer to a horror than a comedy. So is it effective horror? No. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act all high and mighty like, oh, this movie isn't scary because I wasn't scared, because I'd be lying if I said that the movie didn't disturb me. The movie, suffice it to say, wasn't very pleasant to watch, but I wouldn't call it scary by any means. I can handle gore, that isn't the problem, but it's more the faces and how they contort and the extremely loud jump scares that the movie has. I hate jump scares. They're a cheap and annoyingly effective form of getting the audience to be scared, and the movie is full of them. Aside from the obvious gore and body horror, there aren't actually that many elements of horror in the film. This is where the sequel works a lot better in my opinion, because from what little I've seen of it, it already does a better job at psychologically unnerving the audience without having to rub blood and gore in their face. I mean, they still do, in fact it's turned up to 11, but it feels more like the gore is in service to the horror and not the horror itself. So the movie isn't scary, and the movie isn't particularly funny, so what exactly is it? Is it a thriller, a torture porn, a cheap, lowbrow internet fan project? Yep, you could say that I'm taking the film too seriously, and to an extent I'd agree, but because of how unclear the movie is about what it is, I don't know what to think. I could just accept that this is a low-budget passion project that shouldn't be taken seriously, but the fans of the movie don't seem to think that it is, and the film doesn't really have enough moments in it for me to believe that it shouldn't be taken seriously. Which kind of moves on to my next point. Part 2. Thomas is my senpai. Now this is probably my most subjective point in the entire video. Most of what I've already talked about, while it's obviously just my opinion and should be treated as such, I think is grounded in some truth. This point is purely based off my love for the franchise and its creator. The original author of the Railway series, the Reverend Wilbur Awdry, wrote the books to read to his son, who was bedridden with polio. He has also said it represents man's walk with God and the consequences of disobeying and rejecting God. And it feels kind of gross to me to take this really wholesome backstory and flip it. Look, I'm not saying Paul Vids can't make the film because it offends me like some keyboard warrior on Twitter, but it is my opinion that the film is a bit of a spit in the face to a man's bedtime story that he wrote for his ill son. And I doubt that was Paul's intentions, because he said that he hadn't watched the show in years before making the film and was never a fan of it, but it's still how it comes across to me. And also, I just love Thomas the Tank Engine. It's just very charming and relaxing content that I firmly believe can be enjoyed by anyone of any age. Minus the modded stuff. That thing is just hot garbage. And I don't like taking innocent things and making them disturbing. And I'm not an idiot, I get that that's the point, but it's just my opinion. And you could make the argument that it's doing its job if that is indeed my opinion, but notice my use of the word disturbing and not scary. I stand by my belief that the film is not scary. Disturbing, gross, boring, sure, but scary, no. Scary implies that there's some sort of psychological aspect to it that should unnerve the audience, but that just isn't present in this film. Again, all it does is rub blood and gore in your face, and if you're sensitive to that sort of thing, cool, I guess it's doing its job, but if you're not, well, the film's just failed at its job. Part 3. The fans of this movie make me want to commit neck rope. If YouTube has failed at anything in their many years of failure, not enforcing their policy of you have to be 13 or older to own an account might be one of their worst. This is most clearly seen by the complete morons who enjoy this film. Now, I'm not referring to everyone who likes the film, but some of the fans of this movie are just some of the worst fans of anything I've ever seen. They remind me of creepypasta fans, you know, the people who draw ship art of murderers and demons because it's cute. Except, on top of the fan art, they also act like this movie is the greatest thing anyone has ever made, ever. I assume they're children. I really hope they are, because if they aren't, I weep for the future of the human race. But these people, they go onto people's channels who criticize the movie and spew these completely brain-dead arguments. If you don't like it, don't watch it! Or just insult the children who are afraid of it. And look, I've seen some pretty horrendous arguments for people saying the film sucks, but they are obviously just very young children who watch the film too young. Kids are stupid, I'm stupid, and I'm gonna be stupid for a very long time. I saw a review from this 20-ish-year-old man who said he had autism, who was extremely offended by the film, and some of the comments on the video were appalling. I'd show some examples, but the creator took down the video for unexplained reasons. And while obviously fans of a piece of media shouldn't affect the quality of the media itself, because of how this movie affected the fandom as a whole, it's really difficult to find people who make coherent arguments in favor of the film. And because a lot of people in the fandom are very young, you're highly likely to run into these sorts of arguments. Part 4. The plot's kinda dumb, not gonna lie. Now that we've gotten past the problems the film has from a structure point of view and a fandom point of view, we can actually talk about the plot. After the events of World War II, a German scientist named Wilhelm Gotz discovers biofusion. Biofusion is the act of taking organic material and fusing it with a mechanical material, much like a cyborg. Wilhelm and his wife give birth to their son Hans Gotz, who gives birth to his son Thomas. When this son, who looks an awful lot like a certain children's show character, gets hit by a train, Gotts goes completely silent and locks himself in a science lab called Shed 17. Several months later, Thomas emerges from Shed 17 as a train. People from all across the world ask to be turned into trains or other vehicles, but Wilhelm says no. Then the Fat Controller buys part of the research center and agrees to turn people with enough money into trains. Problem is, it doesn't work properly and all of the engines start dying. The only two who don't are Henry and Thomas. Wilhelm commits game end after hearing about what happened, and Henry finds out what's in Shed 17. He yells at the Fat Controller, then the Fat Controller assassinates him. I'm not even joking. That just leaves Thomas, who, despite Henry's warnings, goes into Shed 17 to find out he's a clone and had several failed attempts. Then, and I'm not even joking here, a skeleton pops out. You know, like that creepypasta meme from like 10 years ago. After this happened, biofusion is outlawed everywhere except China, where convicts are turned into trains for slave labor. Great plot, huh? I just want to quickly mention that, aside from the age restriction and some vague narration at the beginning of the film, there is no indication that this film is a horror. This isn't seen in the title or the thumbnail. And I'm not going to say that, oh, this film can't be made because kids might watch it, because that's a weak argument. But I think some sort of warning should have been in order. And of course, not every kid would follow that warning, but then at least you could say that it's not your fault. Age restrictions on YouTube are really stupid, because most kids just straight up lie about their age. So I do think that it's a bit neglectful to not have a warning. And you could say that this would kill the shock of all of it, but I don't think it would, because most people at this point would know going into it that something would be up. So having a warning at the beginning like, hey, this movie contains horror themes, turn back if you're a kid, at least that's something. The Shed 17 Christmas special did that, and it still worked, even though it was a teaser for Project G1. But rambling aside, let's address some of the plot holes that the movie has, lightning round style. The film establishes extremely early that diesel engines don't work because they melt from the inside, with the movie and then later the sequel shows diesel engines working just fine. How does this work? How come if it's a documentary, the ending has a train crash that isn't labeled as a recreation like the rest of the deaths in the film and also isn't relevant to the rest of the documentary? How come there's no sawdust when Thomas gets hit by a train? We see his arm fly off, and I'm pretty sure there'd be a lot of blood if your arm flew off. Again, why is there blood in the trains but not people? How did Thomas's friend not see the giant train coming? He was staring right at it. In fact, how couldn't he hear the train either? Also, Wilhelm Gotts kills himself after the train stopped working, but at no point in the movie does he attempt to stop what the Fat Controller is doing. He didn't call the police or try to shut down the project at all. The Fat Controller was literally committing mass murder. The documentary is set in modern day according to Paul in an interview, but Thomas the Show is set in the early 60s, so that doesn't make sense. We know the events portrayed in the documentary would be at the earliest set in the 80s because there is color handheld camera work for not only a lot of the engine deaths, but Thomas's reveal. And I know Paul said that this is a separate universe, which is fine, but at the end of the movie, it says that the Fat Controller would be 102 years old if he was alive today, but then shows up at the end of Project E1, meaning that he would have been 64 during the events of Shed 17, but he looks relatively young in it. So we can assume that this is set earlier than that by at least 15 to 20 years, and on the topic of the Fat Controller, again, he shows up at the end of Project G1, which is set in modern day, meaning the Fat Controller is not only still healthy enough to turn Keith into a truck, but also stand up and move around. And the passage of time is only shown by some wrinkles appearing on his face? Have you seen a 102-year-old before? And are we really supposed to believe that the Fat Controller just happens to have train tracks leading into his office? That seems like one hell of a safety hazard considering how prone to failure these engines are. And finally, how come Thomas pulls out of Shed 17 at the beginning of the film, implying he had been built in there, but didn't know about all the cloning and the weird body and the green fluid tank? The movie really just falls apart when you look at it critically, or apply any logic to it at all. And I get that it's fiction, but that isn't the problem. The problem is that when it's held up against its own logic, it still doesn't work. Part 5. Is there anything good about it? Now you might be thinking, surely it isn't all bad, right? And you're correct. The film does have some redeeming qualities. I think the mockumentary setup works well and doesn't really hinder the story too much. The animation, while it isn't by any means good, is fine considering that this is a budget fan film animated by one person. And besides, it isn't really meant to look good. The voice acting is fine even though there isn't a whole lot of it aside from just general narration, and some of the deaths are pretty creative, even if they're really stupid. My problem with it simply comes down to the execution. Part 6. The conclusion. Look, I know I've been giving this movie a really hard time, and in a lot of ways it deserves it. But the film hasn't really been popular for a very long time. It really shouldn't be taken seriously. And really, I can't bring myself to say I hate the movie. It's just not for me. If you like mindless horror you don't need to think about, I still wouldn't recommend it, but you could do a lot worse. And I'm completely aware of the Grease and Oil podcast where they interviewed the creator Paul Vids, and they spoke a lot about the backlash the film got and how it shouldn't be taken seriously. And look, while personally I don't think the joke of, oh, this horrifying thing is happening in a kids show is a particularly funny joke, mainly because I've seen it done so many times before, if you take it for what it is, a mindless, stupid, completely unserious film that a bored guy thought of at work to make in his spare time, then it's fine. Honestly, I really don't care about the movie. A lot of my outrage was exaggerated, but I wasn't lying when I said I didn't enjoy the movie. It was an uncomfortable and at points very boring experience. Maybe because I not only knew how it ended before seeing it, but also a lot of the deaths and how they happen. I have seen the ending of Project G1 and it looks unironically fantastic. I watched Nick on Planet Ripple's review, and from the clips he showed in his review, it's a lot funnier, scarier, and more enjoyable. So when taking all of that into account, my final thoughts are, it wasn't good, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. And if you're into this sort of thing, knock yourself out.
Well, that was Shed 17, a pretty wild ride, huh? But now that I've prematurely released my Halloween special, what am I gonna do when Halloween actually rolls around? Really? I just spent 26 minutes of my life talking about why I hate Shed 17, and now you're gonna ask me to review its sequel? Fine. But only because I've heard it's a vast improvement, and I'm morbidly curious. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, God bless.
This song is copyrighted, and it is kinda racist.
What's up guys, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Ashnag, and today we're going to be making a really awesome milkshake. So let's just jump into it. Oh, so today's episode, we're going to need a couple of things. We're going to need a blender and a cup for what? You're gonna need milk, obviously. You're gonna need a banana. I meant to do that. You're gonna need chocolate syrup. So yeah. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna want. To do is here it is. Alright, so first thing you're gonna want to do, no, peel the banana first, that's right. Now whenever you peel a banana, you're supposed to cut the end off, obviously. Open it up to reveal the juicy banana. Yeah. So we're just gonna, and then you take the banana and okay, that's good. And so then what you're gonna, you didn't actually need the knife. That was a mistake. So the next thing you're gonna want to do is get your sauce of choice. This could be caramel, this could be chocolate, whatever it is. Oh, that didn't take the cap off. Oh, yeah, let's go. Oh, whoops, I didn't need, oh. So now that you've done that, you're gonna get some ice cream. You're just gonna, oh, look at that. Ice cream makes everything better. Like birthdays, and parties, and funerals. Anyway, so we're gonna put the ice cream away. We don't want it to melt. And so now you take the milk. It's a very delicate process. Oh, damn it. It's fine, it's okay. Just, my hands get a bit shaky sometimes. You're gonna want to fill it to the max. Okay, and then so... Okay, so when you've got it to the max, you're gonna take your spoon, I'm just gonna break everything up. Yeah, let's go. Excellent. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna get chocolate chips. That's right. We go all out with our cooking with Ashnag. So you're just gonna want to make 1, 2. Okay. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take some chocolate powder. Yep. Excellent. Alright, so now you're going to want to take some sugar for flavour. You're going to want about that much sugar, just so you oh, dang it, I didn't. That's fine. And so that's just for a bit of garnish. Alright, now as you can probably see, this is starting to get quite full. And so what you're going to do is just going to take some, any drink will really work, you know, it doesn't really matter. There we go, so that just mixes everything together. It's always good to remember that this is hard work, so what, you don't feel like you have to, you have to, like, not take breaks during cook, like, obviously there are exceptions, but right now, I just want to have a little drink. So the last thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get a tin of tuna and open it. Alright, so now that you've got it open, you're just going to drain all the juicy juice out. Alright, and so now that you've got your tuna, we're going to put it in with the mixture. So you might remember earlier, I told you that there's a little max sign, meaning you shouldn't go over that point. So you might have noticed that means we've got a bit of a problem on our hands. What we're going to do is we're going to cover it with our hands, and so we're going to let some of the liquid out. And we're just going to let some more liquid out, and then you can sink to the bottom, and you're just going to mix it a little bit. Make sure that it reaches the max. And if it doesn't, you can just bulk it up a little bit. There we go. Alright, let's put this in the blender. Alright, so I'm assuming you know how to use a blender. But if you don't, all you're going to do is plug it in. So you're simply going to line it up, and then you just... And there we go. Cool. There you go. Doesn't need to be for too long. Yeah, and so now you have your finished drink. Silly me, I almost forgot. You need a bit of a cinnamon garnish, just for flavor. This beautiful, handcrafted, straight from the blender milkshake is better than anything. What's a popular milkshake cafe has ever put out? Checkmate. Cafes. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned some new tips and tricks. That's always my goal with these videos. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like, maybe subscribe if you're interested, and I will see you in the next episode of Cooking with Ashnag. Be there in a sec, just grabbing another ingredient. Alex. Well, good evening, Spook fans, and boy do I have some good news. I did it. I finally mastered the art of accurately reading the date, so I can tell you with absolute certainty that today is in fact October 31st. That's right. I actually got the day right. Well, I know what you're thinking. What are you gonna do with this newfound power? Well, let me tell you. I'm gonna review the sequel to Shed 17. The antidepressants aren't working. Back in July, when I reviewed Shed 17, I set out with one goal: to articulate my reasons to dislike the movie as clearly as I can and justify a review for it. However, after hours of scripting, editing, re-scripting, losing footage, and of course, re-editing, I wasn't happy with the final product. Several minutes of footage had to be cut from the final project because I hadn't researched the movie properly and had made blatant mistakes, which could be seen through my many correction asterisks throughout. I hadn't even watched the movie properly yet. When I sat down to watch it, I was watching it in 2 times speed because it was 40 minutes long and I frankly just wanted it over and done with, which led to a poorly researched and scripted review that I was not only unhappy with, but got a copyright strike immediately. Worth it for that ending credit scene though. I do like the editing, and I think visually the review works, but I think that I focused on the wrong arguments and didn't spend enough time talking about why the movie didn't work on a fundamental level. So this review is going to be structured a little bit differently. First, I'll review Project G1, discuss what I liked, what I didn't like, and how it compares to Shed 17. I'm going to clarify some points from my original review and add some points that I didn't make in the original. I've rewatched parts of the movie I was confused about and now have a better understanding of what happens in the movie. After that, I'll discuss what I would do for a rework of both movies to improve them both, then discuss how I would do a possible third movie, and finally, discuss my opinions on the movie's creator, Paul Vitz. We don't know for sure if Paul is making a third movie, but he definitely left Project G1 open-ended enough for one to happen. So sit back, relax, get your heart rate questionably normal, because I'm about to explain my thoughts on the Shed 17 series, and how they both fail at everything they try to be. Quick side note, if you haven't seen my original review, do so now, because I'm working under the assumption that you have seen my original review and have a decent understanding of the movie. Okay? Okay. Part 1. The thing that you clicked on the video for. Remember when I said this in my original review? I have seen the ending of Project G1, and it looks unironically fantastic. Well, that didn't age well. If I had to sum up this movie in any way, it would be this. If Shed 17 was the video equivalent of getting kicked in the balls, this movie is the humiliation that precedes it, followed by another kick to the balls. And I'm only slightly joking. The movie, in summary, was a substantial improvement over Shed 17, however, that's like saying a gunshot to the leg is preferable to a gunshot to your face. The models and camera work are both a lot better, even though I still have some major issues with both of them. And the voice acting and writing are both just overall improved. However, for everything this movie does right, there's something it completely screws up. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Though I should mention that we're only 8 seconds in and we've already had an unnecessary jump scare. Yeah, this is the kind of movie we're in for. But it does lead into my favorite scene in the entire movie. We get a staticky VHS effect, followed by a handheld camera, showing the Shed 17 sign, with Keith's opening narration.
Respect. When you lose even one of those, you take something away from those around you. The ones you love, your friends. We let down those closest to us, without ever realising we'd done so. The people that didn't leave work at night. They worked the railways for the love of railways. They weren't silenced. They weren't subdued. They just didn't have anything to object to. By the time they realised there was a problem, it was too late. We didn't stifle them. We didn't lock them away. We didn't lie to them. We committed the worst sin of all. We just didn't listen.
The camera slowly transitions from a 4:3 aspect ratio into a widescreen ratio, as the VHS slowly dissolves away. This opening is brilliant and I love it. It's creepy, atmospheric, and sets a great precedent for the rest of the movie. Just kidding. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that this is my favourite scene out of both movies. That's how good it is. Plus, we get to see what was behind the jar at the end of Shed 17 that made Thomas literally jump out of his skin. It looks really stupid, but it's gone as quickly as it arrives as the military guns it down, and already I have to start nitpicking. When is this set in relation to the ending of Shed 17? It can't be directly after, because Thomas has already been removed from his metal casing, meaning I guess his screaming alerted someone and they called the authorities. I'll get into this when I discuss how I'd fix the movies, but I think a shot of a person calling the authorities, then cutting to the creature in the tank, would work a lot better in my opinion. Also, the creature kind of just pops out of nowhere, but I digress. We then see Thomas's body being airlifted out, as the narrator explains how the reaction of the original documentary shook the world. Then Thomas vomits out some acid as Cranky starts screaming. And once again, I have to nitpick. This is less of a contrivancy and more just a poorly written sentence.
I don't think the documentary showed anything we didn't already know. People had just become desensitised to what had happened to Thomas and his friends. The reaction, or rather, overreaction, began straight away.
That sentence is a complete contradiction. He says the world was already aware of the horrors that Thomas and his friends faced, and then says that the world was horrified and reacted accordingly. So, which is it? Did it reveal horrors or not? Just little lines like that ruin the movie for me. Call me a perfectionist all you want, but this is just how I view movies, especially movies I don't like.
With the documentary came the public outcry and the media's need for a scapegoat.
The Goetze family were in hiding. The fat had vanished with all his money, and there I was, in full public view, being blamed for the whole thing.
Do you want to apologise? Because frankly, you should know better than that.
Bloody hell.
4 minutes in, and we've already had a poop joke. Shed 17 never really tried to be funny. Its label of black comedy was that its inherent premise was the comedic value, which isn't what comedy is, but okay. This is one of 2 poop jokes in the movie. 18 plus, guys. You have to be 18 plus. I guess you could say that the vomit gags in the original were just as bad, but even then this movie has vomiting gags as well, so it's just worse. Also, this was an issue with the original as well, but why do they censor swearing, but show graphic depictions of suicide, mutilation, molestation, and murder? That was a lot of alliteration. What are these documenters' priorities? I can already tell this is gonna be a long review.
I was finally given the chance to tell my side of the story on national television, tell people what actually happened, and acquit myself in the eyes of the public.
Mr. Hartley, are you to blame for the events on Sodor Island?
Well, let me tell you, I am not.
I am totally to blame for what happened to Thomas and all his friends, and I'd do it again tomorrow.
We did it! We got a funny joke! I knew you had it in you, Paul! Well, if anything we know, at least in this universe, CNN is still in business, so that's good to know.
But the public outcry would bring an anonymous whistleblower out into the light. Someone who would reveal more facts about the events on Sodor Island, both before and after the Thomas incident.
I worked closely on the television series in the early 80s, so I was around the engines at all times. It's only now, after I can't make a difference to those engines' lives, that I've heroically decided to speak.
Damn, 2 good jokes in a row. That's a new record for these movies. For those of you who don't get the reference, this is supposed to be Ringo Starr, who, along with being the drummer for the Beatles, narrated the first 2 seasons of Thomas and Friends.
The ban on biofusion came into effect just after Oliver and Duck were looking forward to working on the railway.
When it looked as though they would be locked away forever, the Japan Railway Group offered them work on their railway.
Duck and Oliver jumped at the chance. The travel was paid for by the Japanese railway, and they couldn't wait to be there.
Unfortunately, arriving in Tokyo, Duck and Oliver would find that, under Japanese law, they weren't recognised as human beings.
Oh great, this is where we get to, by far, my least favourite scene in the entire movie. When I watched this movie the first time, my friends and I all watched it on Discord together, and when this scene started playing, I knew exactly what was about to happen, because I had already watched this part. But of course, my friends didn't know anything about these movies. I got them all to guess what they thought would happen next, and by far the best prediction was sexual favours, and honestly, that would be way more realistic and enjoyable than the crap this movie gives us.
Fitted with pneumatic joints, stabilizers and supports, they were ready for the main event.
According to Paul's vids, this was one of the first scenes he made before he even knew where the movie would end up going, because, surprisingly enough, the unfocused and poorly thought out movie was made up generally as he went. It's shocking, I know. Also, fun little tidbit, this is apparently Paul's least favourite scene in the movie also. He thought he went too far, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. But I have to ask, what in the ever torturous hell was Paul smoking when he made this? And where can I get some? This, of course, makes no sense. One of my friends actually pointed out the fact that for these to work, where would the organs be stored? Because in Shed 17, we see where the organs are kept, and it's in the same place that these ridiculous robot arms are kept. Man, I feel like for all of these scenes, I just have to accept the fact that realism was clearly thrown out the window for these complete... I don't even know what to call them. Works of insanity? Visual aids? I don't know. But, as I can only assume will be a reoccurring sentence in this review, let's just continue. We pick up in the UK with Hit Logistics being tasked to use biofused matter to create a superweapon by the British government.
IND project. These cells have their DNA instructions removed. Biofused stem cells, which can then adapt and assume any form necessary. It is for this purpose we have begun making extensive research into twins.
We also find out that Dr. Owen Ruth from the original documentary is spearheading this project, much to the dismay of Keith. They also put further research into twins and their apparent psychic link, which leads them to discover that the damage one experiences, the other will not only feel a sensation of, but will suffer the same consequences of, which leads to this scene of Douglas falling apart, and we see what the engines look like without their metal casings. And they have arms. Why? What purpose would they serve? They don't even have muscles on them, so realistically, it's just bone taking up unnecessary space. Plus, their faces look like this image of a chip my friend sent me, and that just makes me laugh. Which leads into finding about this one dude and his wife being biofused for reasons, I guess. The wife gets turned into a coach whose cells split and create two coaches, one that's mentally damaged, and the husband is turned into a diesel, which, again, contradicts the previous movie's notion that diesels burn up. But who cares, because we have a mental impairment joke to laugh at. Nothing but the highest brow humour from our good friend Paul Vids. And I'm not saying you can't make offensive jokes, knock yourself out, but this is a pretty tasteless joke in my opinion. He literally talks about the husband picking his normal wife over the mentally damaged one. And that's just kind of gross and feels oddly mean-spirited. I hope that wasn't Paul's intention, but it's certainly how it comes across. Then it turns out that the coach's furniture is made up of their organs, and confirms that indeed, the engines can defecate. And here is our second poop joke.
This is a really great movie, you guys!
Fun fact, in geography, we had to do a PowerPoint presentation on a waterborne disease of our choosing, and because I'm very mature, I chose diarrhea and used this screenshot for my title page. I just wanted to throw that out there to the world. This also implies that the engines eat food. How and why? I mean, it makes sense. They have to keep the organs going somehow, but how come we never see an engine eat? I mean, it's not like it's the end of the world that we don't see it, but in neither of these movies does it ever state that the engines eat food. And these movies are like 70% exposition, so I'm surprised that it wasn't mentioned once. After realizing the capability of cloning, Hit Logistics are tasked to create biofused tanks that could be made from one soldier, which is a pretty creative idea that I quite like, and even leads into a joke that actually made me laugh.
Human participant, not just controlling a weapon, but becoming the weapon. Able to react to danger and orders in a fraction of the time.
To maintain the secrecy of these illegal experiments, the soldiers' faces would be covered up, so that the only giveaway was a cry of discomfort when a vehicle was damaged or a tank shell was fired.
Shed 17 never really had jokes like these, and if it did, with enough of them, I'd be willing to believe that it was actually a comedy. But unfortunately, this is one of, if not the last proper jokes that the movie has. Well, it was fun while it lasted. Now we find out Dr. Owen Ruth's plans for Project G1.
Get it guys, cause that's the title of the movie.
Think of the possibilities. A weapon dropped into a city that can take any form it wishes and adapt any organic material it finds. Whole communities of people removed and left empty for occupation. Stage 1 is the secure storage of biofused genetic matter in stasis. Stage 2 will involve the release of this material, in secure conditions of course. To release this material in an uncontrolled state would be disastrous.
A pretty interesting idea, all things considered. Unfortunately, we're coming up to my absolute favorite scene in the movie. Yeah, remember when I said the Duck vs. Oliver scene was my least favorite? Well, I was wrong. Sort of. We find out about Steamies, train enthusiasts who became a little too interested in trains. This leads to a scene that... You know what? I'll just play the clip.
Did they, Al? He were left there for years. Everyone had forgotten him. In a way, it would have been better for Smudger if he'd been forgotten forever.
Unfortunately, one group of people had not forgotten, and were still on the lookout for engines, for their own brand of fun. With the advent of the dark web, Steamies could now safely connect online, sharing their sick fantasies.
But Smudger wasn't a fantasy. Smudger was waiting for them, all locked up and nowhere to run. A sitting duck for the Steamies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, do it.
Go on, do it.
Go on.
Go on. Go on. Do it.
Yeah. Go on. Go on, do it.
Yeah.
Go on.
Go on.
Go on.
Go on, do it. No. Oh, get out of here.
No, God!
Get out. No.
No, God, please, no! 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 No!
You might remember in my last video I made a joke about a scene with train molestation. Well, I wasn't joking. This was cut for obvious reasons, which by default makes the Duck vs. Oliver scene my least favourite, but that doesn't change the fact that a human being decided this was necessary to create. Oh yeah, we also find out that Clarabelle was burned, because of the backlash for what they were doing caused them to need to start burning any and all evidence they had. Great.
As Clarabelle was disposed of, no one but Diesel knew what happened to her twin nearly 20 miles away.
Annie, my love, what's wrong? What's the matter?
What's happening?
Annie, please, stay with me. I can't go. I can't. Stay with me. Stay with me. No. 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 No.
Diesel becomes like the leader of this organization called the Sodor Liberation Force, with the goal of having Sodor become a safe haven for biofused vehicles. And now my second favourite scene in the entire movie. In this universe, Welsh coal is a narcotic that leads engines to addiction. This is a pretty creative idea that I quite like.
Illegally operated.
Oh, we can get him to do pretty much anything we want to. You know, a bit of the black stuff.
Yeah, bit of the black stuff.
This undercover footage reveals how Ferdinand was being forced to work, controlled by his addiction to Welsh coal.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, you're gonna work for it. Hey, do you want some of this?
We use Welsh coal to get the weaker engines started up, to give some engines a kick when they were struggling to get up in the morning.
Addiction and dependency.
It's creepy, but interesting, and makes a lot of sense. If the movie had more scenes like this, horror that wasn't just gore, it could be a lot better in my opinion.
Surprise! Percy moaned.
Don't worry, Percy.
Thomas puffed.
All I need is a good washdown.
Assuming, of course, you're actually going for horror and not comedy. And even then, retooling this scene could work as a great comedic moment. Though this was a step too far in my opinion, and is just kind of too unrealistic for it to be funny.
We knew there were a problem when Gordon started talking to the voice in his head, telling him to do things, bad things.
Yes, said Gordon, I will.
Like, how the hell would an engine be able to pull that off?
Hit Logistics would later take Welsh coal research to its natural conclusion. High-speed steam engines would be pushed to their limits on high doses of the coal.
Ooh, that's clever. Though the use of CGI doesn't really make a whole lot of sense with the context of this movie, but oh well, it was worth it for that scene.
As pressure from the media increased, and fearing more bad press, Project G1 was put on hold, its future uncertain. Stage 1 stored away in what Professor Ruth called a controlled environment.
I'll skip over a couple of things and get to the point. Basically, Smudger is airlifted away and Diesel and a bunch of his followers stage a protest outside Hit Logistics.
Showing evidence. Soon, there would be nothing left to even prove their existence.
That was what they hoped. They didn't count on one final desperate act. Cranky had been driven mad by all the things he'd seen working for the government, but the worst thing was having to keep it quiet for all those years.
Unfortunately, Cranky's genetic structure meant he couldn't turn around fully, not without breaking the entire circulatory system to his head. Effectively, he was condemning himself to a painful death.
So apparently Cranky can't do 360-degree movements?
Who's designing these things?
First a helicopter who can't fly, then trucks that can't store cargo, and now a crane that can't make a full rotation? Biofusion can't be cheap. This just seems like a huge waste of money and time, but whatever. They smash the building, Diesel sacrifices himself to destroy the facility, but then just ends up releasing Project G1.
Had veered into the now secured stasis container of Project G Stage 1. Opening it up and allowing the deprogrammed biofused matter to assimilate any matter it wished, and to take on any form it wished.
Lads, I looked at the mirror. I looked at the mirror, lads. Lads.
And this, my dear viewer, is Project G1.
He said it! He said it!
Now we get to the second biggest overall issue with this movie. While obviously Gordonzilla is a cool design, if the biofusion matter can take any form at once, why not take a more efficient form? Like a nuclear bomb-throwing tank or something. Or hell, even just a human. After all, they'd probably want to go back to their human bodies anyway. And Project G1 literally means Project Gordon Stage 1. But how could they predict that it would take Gordon's form? Plus, I'll go into more detail later, but apparently Paul's vids called this character General Audrey, named after the original author of the Railway series, the Reverend W. Audrey, for one reason. And forgive me if I'm misquoting, but quote, to see how many people he could piss off with this. He called this character General Audrey purely so he could upset fans. Great, this guy seems like a real sound dude. But I'll go into this further at the end. So Gordonzilla storms through the city and makes for the Blue Mountain Quarry because he just knows where it is, I guess. I like to picture him asking locals for directions and reading railway signs. This is where the last of the biofused matter is, and if he can absorb it, he can become unstoppable. The military is already there, as well as Keith, for some reason. Like, he's a civilian, so why is he allowed here? The creature stops, and then the movie, finally, completely, and totally gives up with being a documentary. This is all apparently just hand-filmed, with panning shots and dramatic zooms. Hell, Paul admits that he basically just gave up making it a documentary at this point. So why would he make it a documentary in the first place? Just have it be a narrated story if you really want Keith to be a narrator. Whatever. The military's plan to stop it is revealed to us at last, as well as telling us where Thomas was this entire movie.
Find peace.
Realising Project G1's destination and intent, the military provided it with what it was looking for. After 28 operations to try and reconstruct him as a human being, he had remained behind closed doors, unwilling until now to show the world the monster he had become.
That wasn't the Thomas I knew. That wasn't an engine or a human. It were a creature mutilated by surgeons and engineers alike.
Yeah, the thing Keith was standing in front of during the entire interview was Thomas's body. Somehow. Okay, this is completely off script. I just want to talk about how stupid this is. This makes zero sense. The documentary is being filmed live as this is happening. But then, in the very next scene, this is contradicted. The structure and pacing and plotting of this movie makes absolutely no sense that it's comical. And then we get this.
Unable to react to the outside world at this stage, Thomas was the last chance the military had to stop Project G1.
Finally, the nightmare were over. Thomas had found the remains of his friends. His friends had found him. Sodor Island's favourite sons would finally be at peace.
The mystery of the Blue Mountain had been solved. 6,000 tons of desiccated, dehumanized biofused matter, hidden in full view. And now used as a weapon.
Which, I'll be completely honest, is a really interesting way to end the movie. There's no big plot twist, it just sort of ends on a somber note, which I actually really respect. Frankly, there's no way that they could really top the shock of the Shed 17 ending. This is just a very respectful and quiet note to leave the movie on. There's no huge thing that just takes the viewer off guard, it's just a very earnest moment that almost tugs at your heartstrings. But there's still a lot of time left in the video, so what... I'm done. I quit. I quit! I'm sorry, but what the hell was that? Thomas is some sort of demon now? What? Apparently this is in reference to a Thomas and Friends creepypasta called Timothy the Ghost Engine that a lot of people wanted Paul to put in the movie. But this scene actually just makes me really angry. Paul couldn't just leave good enough alone, could he? He had to try and top himself. Look, it's a good twist and everything, but if he had just left it, if he had just given us this more emotional and restrained ending, that would have been a way better ending in my opinion. But no, this movie is a horror, so we have to have a big plot twist at the end. This scene alone completely killed any respect I had for this movie. You can give me the animation is so good for one person, and the voice acting is so much more improved, and the scripting and the writing is so much better. I don't care. The ending is terrible. And you could make the argument that, well, these movies are supposed to be shocking, but I mean, sure, but that doesn't mean that this is good. You know what? Fine. I'm getting really sick of this. The movie's nearly over, so let's just finish it off. So wait, we're in 2040 now. This documentary is talking about the past. And with this context, we know 2040 is the past. Meaning they have been working on this documentary since 2018. Long enough for them to still have interviewed Keith before he died.
Keith, can you hear me, Keith? Can you hear me, Keith? Stay with me now. Stay with me now. Okay, we have to shock him. Clear.
That will not be necessary.
Who are you? Who is this man? What's he doing here?
This man is in our care.
You have no right to be here.
Relax, Mr. Hartley. You are in our capable hands now.
Well, Mr. Hartley.
Hey, it's the Fat Controller.
You've been
cool.
Like the thorn in our side. The wrench in our works. The leaves on our rails. Never want to shy away from the media, were you, Mr. Hartley? Always another revelation about your faithful employer. Never a care for the trouble you caused, the innovations you've hampered, initiatives you've stalled, the jobs you've lost, the challenges to this island's human supremacy. Well, we've got a very special place for you here, somewhere you can't open your big mouth or interfere anymore. And don't worry, Mr. Hartley. You're among friends here. This is where everyone ends up, once they've become troublesome.
You might remember in my old review I took issue with the Fat Controller's age. Now he's 105. But the thing is, this scene is so weirdly done. We go from 2018 to 2040 and then back to 2018? We assume at least. From what we can tell from the pacing and the structure of the movie, this scene is either set sometime after Thomas kills Keith or sometime after the 2040 block of text. So the Fat Controller could be anywhere between 105 and 127. I mean, 105 makes more sense, but because of how badly these scenes are structured, the impression we get is that he's 127. Now Keith is a truck, I guess, which is a fine ending. I'm honestly surprised that Paul even knows what foreshadowing is, but this was pretty well set up and works out well. Then we see Diesel 10. We just do.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And that, at last, was Project G1. Talking very broadly, this movie was pretty bad. While I did enjoy it more than Shed 17, I still think it had a lot of issues that spoiled the movie for me. I think that while it did take itself a little less seriously, it's clear it was still trying to be scary, and I think that this movie was actually somehow less scary than Shed 17. Like I said, it dropped at the documentary style for no reason, had a completely nuts plot, and was just generally really stupid. Shed 17 was unrealistic and had holes, but it was nothing compared to this piece of garbage. And keep in mind, I went into this movie with optimism. If you saw my previous review, you'll know that I was actually unironically excited to watch this, and it just left me disappointed.
My disappointment is immeasurable. And my day is ruined.
But here's the thing. I don't think that I can say I like this less than Shed 17. Even though it's longer, I'd still rewatch this before I'd rewatch Shed 17. No competition. And even then, this movie had a lot I liked. The death of Gordon Zilla before it goes completely off the rails. I like the introduction, and even though I don't like how it was executed, Keith being turned into a truck was a pretty good twist ending. But weirdly enough, I noticed a couple of weird grammatical mistakes. For example, I have in my notes at 20 minutes and 27 seconds, the narrator says speeded.
The destruction of the evidence was speeded up.
And then I added the notation of, did you mean sped? And that's not even the only example. Overall, watching these movies was just a dumb idea. While I kind of understand the appeal they would have for someone, they just really aren't for me. These movies really do just rely on shocking the audience for content, so all in all, Project G1 wasn't good.
Well, that was Project G1, pretty wild, right, huh? But now that I've...
Give me a sec. Yeah?
Is that it? Are you seriously just gonna end the video there?
Yep, the script ends here. Video's ending.
Didn't you say at the beginning of the video that you had like 3 more segments to do?
Look man, I really don't want to do a part 2. This video's long enough as it is, and frankly I don't want to devote 2 whole videos to this train wreck of a film. So I want to go on the record saying right now that I have no intention on doing a part 2.
Someone was killed today because of what you did.
I know. How about another joke, Murray?
No, I think we've had enough of your jokes.
What do you get?
I don't think so.
When you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash!
Call the police,
I'll
Gene.
tell you what you get!
Call the police.
You get what you fucking deserve!
But I have to ask, what in the ever-torturous hell was Paul smoking when he made this? Paul couldn't just leave good enough alone, could he? He had to try and top himself. This scene alone completely killed any respect I had for this movie. The ending is terrible. Talking very broadly, this movie was pretty pretty bad. It dropped the documentary style for no reason, had a completely nuts plot, and was just generally really stupid. What do you want now?
You said you'd release the part 2 of Project G1 review today.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
How nearly done are you?
I don't know, like 20% done, I guess?
20%? How are you going to release a video today if you're only 20% done? Look, put it this way. You should probably finish writing this bit and then get on with the actual video.
Yeah, that bit got too better.
Part 2.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
In the Shed 17 review, there are a couple of points I made that were either poorly researched or not articulated properly. For example, I assumed that the movie was set in either the 80s or the 60s, and I worked out that the movie had to be set in the 80s for it to work based off of character models and confirmed ages, but concluded that that didn't make sense because that would mean that the Fat Controller would be in his late 60s during the events of the film, and that it would just generally make more sense for the movie to be set in the 1960s because A, steam engines would be in more use at that time as they weren't completely obsolete at that point, B, the Fat Controller would be younger, making his drastic age jump at the end of the movie make more sense, and C, because it would fit in with the basic timeline of the original television series. However, I simply missed some clear evidence as to when the movie was set. According to Thomas's camera, it's the late 70s when he dies, and the rest of the movie is set in the 80s, which means I was right in my assumption of it being set in the 80s, but wrong about my reasoning. The Fat Controller being in his 60s makes sense, I guess. The puppets don't really show much age aside from hair and wrinkles occasionally. Plus, if Keith was in his 30s during the events of the film, that would mean he would be in his 60s during the interview, but that age isn't really seen in the model. Same with Dr. Ruth. He looks the same in the 80s as he does in the mid-2010s. So my point of the lack of obvious age doesn't really prove anything. However, it doesn't change the fact that a probably 105-year-old Sir Topham Hatt is still kicking around at the end of Project G1, which still doesn't make sense in my opinion. And look, it's not just the fact that it's unrealistic, it's the fact that it's unrealistic in a movie franchise that bends over backwards to discuss the science behind everything. If the movie just threw its hands up and said, screw it, dead people trains, that would be, dare I say it, actual comedy. Take Pymation's Thomas and the Magic Railroad parody. It, like Project G1, is a much more cynical take on Thomas the Tank Engine. So let's compare the two, shall we?
Oh shit, it's Thomas. F yeah, let's go meet up with him. I can just use some gold dust. Remember that? From my 19% on Rotten Tomatoes movie, Thomas and the Magic Railroad? I can use it to teleport and all sorts of other wacky tacky shit. Let's do that now. Sparkle sparkle.
Oh, what the hell?
Pretty similar, right? However, probably the biggest difference these two videos have is I actually like Pymation's Thomas parody. One of the main reasons being it's explicitly a comedy. It obviously doesn't take itself very seriously, whereas Project G1 very clearly does. Shed 17 and Project G1 are like if this parody had an extra 10 minutes where the narrator explains what cocaine is, how it's made, and the effects it has on people. It would not only ruin the joke, it would stretch the sketch out far beyond necessary, which, would you look at that, both movies do. Another point that I could have articulated better is my point of the movie not being scary. I said that the movie didn't scare me, and that a better way of putting it would be that it disturbed me, which is absolutely true, but my reasoning for distinguishing the two wasn't articulated well. What I was trying to get across is that for something to be scary, it should scare the viewer with some sort of psychological aspect. Whereas this movie doesn't. That's a thing that all good horrors have in common. They don't just rub blood and gore in your face, they usually have some sort of aspect that can leave the audience shaken for days and even weeks after seeing the movie. But of course, these movies don't, so the movie isn't inherently scary. However, what I didn't really get across properly is that the movie can still scare people. Some people are scared of gore and dark themes. and that's perfectly fine. Does that make sense? The movie doesn't have anything to make it good horror, is basically what I'm saying. Some people find dogs scary. That doesn't mean that dogs are an inherently scary creature. An irrational fear of something doesn't make something inherently scary. Also, just an interesting thing to note, apparently Polsvids went out of his way to make sure there were no references to the Holocaust in Shed 17, as he thought that that would be in bad taste. So I guess in this guy's mind, a scene in the sequel where a train is raped is fine, but if you mention the Holocaust, that's a step too far. Look, I'm not saying that either joke should be off limits, but it's not one or the other. I'd say, and I think most people would agree when I say, that a joke about rape is probably more offensive than a joke about the Holocaust, and should therefore be treated with more care. But does Polsvids handle this extremely sensitive and touchy subject with any care or subtlety? Of course not. And this further proves my point that, at the very least, Project G1 can't be a comedy. Because if it is, his idea of a funny joke is a train that's been locked away without being able to move, being hunted down and molested by a bunch of humans. But the Holocaust is a step too far, yeah, okay.
Actually, that's pretty good.
He's thinking about the Holocaust!
Now I hate it!
Damn it! Anyway, my final point of the film is bad because I don't like it made up too much of my argument, and I think that's a pretty weak argument for a lot of reasons, so I'd now like to go into more detail as to why I didn't like Shed 17 and how it doesn't work on any level. It's extremely weird to me that the film goes into so much detail as to how the engines work and why they fail, but doesn't explain why they chose steam engines to house Thomas's body in the first place. Sure, Thomas liked trains, but that doesn't mean he'd want to necessarily live the rest of his life as one. And besides, if they can clone him, why don't they just clone him back into a little boy? If the movie just said something like, oh, the cloning process only works if it's put into a mechanical shell, I mean, it still wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, but at least it's some sort of an explanation. The part where they mention it was a way to save people with terminal illnesses makes a bit of sense, because maybe by cloning the original body, they would end up cloning the original problem, so salvaging the organs and working from there makes a little more sense. But even then, what if the organs are the things with the problem? Like, what if they have heart disease or a brain tumor or something? Speaking of problems, please excuse me. I have a doctor's appointment to go to. Don't worry, it's just an annual checkup. There's nothing actually wrong with me. Be back in a sec.
Alright, just a quick question before we start. Watched any bad Thomas the Tank Engine fan films recently?
Oh boy, you don't even know. So what's the diagnosis, Doc?
You have clinical depression.
I guess at the end of the day, for the movie to work, you just have to accept that that's how they did it and there's no way of getting around it, which in this case is just not good storytelling. Don't get me wrong, telling the audience that this is why it is, just accept it, can work. The Reverend Audrey never gave an explanation as to how the engines were alive, but the audience just accepts it. That's just the thing that can happen in this universe. Just like how in Shed 17, we accept the fact that insane German doctors have the ability to turn people into trains in the mid-80s. However, with how hard the movie tries to justify its own existence, little contrivances like why trains can't be explained away with just because plot. Because in a science-based story that relies heavily on its own in-universe logic, something as fundamental as why trains are chosen to become the housing for these biofused people, above biological clones or even humanoid-type robots, has to be justified for the movie's sake. But fine, let's just accept the fact that for the movie to work, they have to be trains. Sure. This doesn't excuse, however, the blatant issue of why the documentary exists in the first place. Project G1 establishes extremely early on that the world was horrified and disgusted by what Keith had brought to the world's attention. Well, that can't be right. We see examples of train carnage throughout all of Project G1. This documentary showed absolutely nothing that the general public shouldn't already know. I mean, sure, a lot of it was covered up, but there were public death sports being held in Japan, so clearly people were aware that the engines are still around. What about the friends and families of the people who got turned into trains? Obviously the documentary wasn't nice and people would be justifiably upset by it, but it's not like some big unheard of thing that happened in some obscure unheard of country. All of this just doesn't add up. Shed 17 doesn't work on a complete and fundamental level, because the foundation on which the story is built upon, a documentary exposing the horrors that occurred so many years ago, doesn't work. When I say that Shed 17 fails at everything it tries to be, I seriously mean everything. It fails at having an intelligent story. It fails at having a structure that makes sense. And now, the most fundamental aspect of the story, the medium that it's parodying, doesn't work. Oh, and don't give me the tired excuse of, it's just a comedy, because it isn't. If you were to show this to an English teacher and told them that it was a comedy, they'd laugh at you. That may have been what the creator intended, but that was not how it was received. I believe that if you want to watch the movie and laugh at how absurd it is, that's fine. Personally, I do the same. I genuinely think it's the only enjoyment anyone could get out of these movies, but if you seriously think that these movies are good, I can't help you. But because of how the movie was received and how it's still treated to this day, I can't help but find this movie ridiculously, incomprehensibly terrible.
Part 3. Well, you're so smart, you try.
Originally, I was basically going to tell you guys my giant rewrite that I'd do for these movies, but it eventually got to a point where I was just writing blatant fanfiction, and it honestly wasn't much better than what we already have. To be fair, it was still a lot better, but that isn't really saying much in all honesty. So, instead, I'm going to talk about some minor changes I'd make that could hopefully fix a lot of the issues I've stated. Firstly, I don't like the title Project G1. It's just a mouthful. So instead, I'm simply calling the sequel Shed 17 Aftermath, or something along those lines. Simply because Project G1 is about the aftermath of the Shed 17 documentaries released. It goes over the public and legal ramifications of what it did/didn't bring to the world's attention. Next, either I'd make it so neither of these movies are documentaries, or both are. It isn't one or the other. In their current forms, Shed 17 and Project G1 are completely different genres. According to Paul's vids, Shed 17 is meant to be sort of a BBC documentary, whereas Project G1 was more like a Netflix documentary, with its more investigatory themes. And honestly, Paul got that comparison dead on. This movie is terrible, and so is Netflix!
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
I would also fix some inconsistencies I've already mentioned in both films.
The destruction of the evidence was speeded up.
I think that some stupid lines of dialogue could be tweaked and just some logical inconsistencies could be ironed out to provide a more polished and well-rounded product. I'd also give Keith a larger role in Project G1 than just being the interviewee, as he was only really in it for exposition. Keep in mind, Keith is meant to be the audience surrogate. He's there in the events of Shed 17, both watching the events as they happen and recalling them. Honestly, I really like Keith. I like that he's not over the top and that his writing is very restrained. He feels like an emotionally broken person. And honestly, I don't love that the movie implies that he was the mastermind all along. The Fat Controller is the villain because he's an established character in the Thomas universe that works well in the context of the movie, i.e. a greedy businessman. Keith is just a fireman who watched a couple of engines die. However, I think it could be interesting if we see he doesn't remember certain things, or even remembers them wrong, as it's likely he wouldn't recall everything he saw clearly, and this could be used for a possible third movie. Like I said, he needs a much bigger role in Project G1's events, as well as being the interviewee, because frankly, it doesn't make any sense that they would get him back for the sequel, as what would he bring to the table? If you haven't been part of the Sodor Liberation Force or something, or maybe even still be close to Ruth and used to get information out of him, it would just give him more to do and make his death all the more impactful. Also, change how Thomas dies. I don't know, man, just change it. And if you're not going to, just give some sort of explanation as to why he splits open for no reason. Like, I looked into it, and that's literally never explained. Maybe have the creature break out and start trying to rip his cloned body out in anger. And also, redesign Project G1. Right now he looks cool, he just seems very impractical. Make him like a weird blob of guts, flesh and parts with multiple protruding faces that can liquefy himself to move faster. Plus, that would make more sense with the fact that he can get bigger and stronger by fusing with more biofused matter. I'd give him a better name as well, like maybe just Bio-1. Drop the project from the name, it's just a mouthful. I'd also like to expand upon the idea of biofusion being used as a punishment. I think that could be pretty interesting. Little changes like these would make it more interesting to watch, I reckon. Does it fix every problem? No. That's not really possible without a complete rewrite, but I think it salvages what little good qualities both movies have.
Part 4. was Shed 18?
Apparently, Paul's Vids has stated that he's not working on another sequel, but the ending of Project G1, while it would work as its own ending, is still quite open-ended and leaves a lot of unanswered questions, whether intentional or not. Things like Owen Ruth's DMs to Keith saying that he has blood on his hands, to Thomas stating that it was always you when he killed him, leaves a lot to explore. Paul's also teased that Keith may not be as innocent as we all thought, so what would I do for a sequel? Well, the way I see it, there are 3 directions they could take. 2 that are more likely to happen, and a better option. But before we establish the story, we should establish the genre and the story structure. I stand by the opinion that both of these movies are horrors. Not particularly good ones, but I can't find a single thing in either of these films that would justify me referring to it as a comedy. The story, I think at least, will most likely be the uprising of the engines. Assuming it's set maybe 50 years after the ending of Project G1 in 2090, it's likely that engines would know nothing but resentment towards humans. We know that Thomas is their president now, so maybe Thomas forms an uprising to destroy the rest of humanity. While I think this idea is really stupid and would most likely be the worst film in the franchise, I think it's probably the direction Paul would take. He would most likely continue to beat the dead horse that are these stupid, never-ending documentaries, but would likely give up halfway through so we could have a scene of some engines running a ton of people over. I honestly think that's how Paul writes these movies. He thinks of an idea and writes the structure around it, but if the structure doesn't work for the idea, he just gives up on said structure.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
A better idea, in my opinion, would be an investigatorial documentary into the crimes that Keith committed against the engines. Paint him to be the villain, and if you're an observant viewer, you'll notice that somewhat contradicts my previous 2 notions that 1, I don't like the idea of Keith being the villain, and 2, I don't want any more documentaries. But let me clarify. While I don't like the idea of Keith being the villain, with the evidence we have now, it could be interesting if it turns out that Keith was lying about certain aspects throughout these movies. And you can even leave it up to the interpretation of the viewer as to whether you believe him or not. And with the documentary style being tired, well, yeah, I still stand by that. But I think if these previous movies are
documentaries,
then this one has to be one as well. And especially since my main issues with the documentary style is that the focus on the engines doesn't really work well, because they don't really get up to much, all things considered. But if it's a documentary about a person, personally I'd call this movie Hartley, the liar behind Shed 17. You could keep the train carnage, keep the gore that the franchise is most well known for, but I think that this not only has the capability of being by far the best and most entertaining of these movies, but the most well written one too. Would it disregard the previous 2 movies? Yes. Does that matter? What do you think? And finally, the last idea would be the world's attempt into researching a biofusion reversal operation, and the horror that could come from the failed attempts. The government attempts to perform the surgeries on the engines of Sodor, but it backfires and they declare war or something. Look, I don't know man, the premise was idiotic to begin with. In my opinion, I think The Liar Behind Shed 17 being a sort of Netflix documentary about the things Keith did would be the most interesting of these ideas. I think the thought of a steam engine uprising is really stupid and impractical, but I think that that's honestly the direction Paul would take, and would be by far the worst movie. Somehow. But hey, I'm no screenwriter, and in all honesty, I am curious as to how he plans to end it, as I'd be surprised if he just left it here. But if he never ends up making one, the legions of fans will probably write their own fanfictions into existence about some garbage spin-off. But now that I'm finally done talking about these movies, I'd like to bring something else to your attention. Part 5. Paul Vids is kind of a dick. I want to preface this next section with this. I am not 100% sure if all of this is necessarily true, or if I'm just misinterpreting what he said, but I'm pretty confident it is. I have a pretty good reason to believe that Paul Vids is kind of a major narcissist. And here's why. He's bragged on multiple occasions that he makes fun of people who leave mean comments on his movies. The places I've seen him do this most are the Grease and Oil podcast and the sort of behind-the-scene videos he's done for Shed 17 and Project G1. For example, take this meme he posted on his Twitter, where he calls an obviously very small child a bellend to all of his fans.
This was some arsehole who was giving me shit all the time when I posted Shed 17, so I made this joke. No one found it funny. Basically making a bell for Ferdinand, so I called him a bellend.
Seriously? He told a bunch of people who said he could get higher quality models by using a different software to piss off and said, quote, "My models look better than that." By the way,
He was comparing a fan film called Tobias and the Half Pariah to his models, so let's compare, shall we? Here's Tobias and the Half Pariah's model of Thomas, and here's Paul Vid's. Sorry Paul, but your model of Thomas doesn't look as good. Assuming that you're actually using the models you designed and aren't just using clips from the television series to make your life easier. Cause that's not inconsistent. And these aren't the only instances. In the Grease and Oil podcast, he talked about being surprised when his film wasn't received well by everyone who saw it. Guess what? Thomas fans are usually extremely young children.
I've been doing the math for hours and it just still doesn't make sense.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it just means that they're not gonna like this sort of thing. They probably won't be able to as easily separate this from their childhood heroes, which you can easily see by the dozens of comments telling Paul that he ruined their childhood. Which he makes fun of in Project G1, by the way. But obviously keep in mind that's not all Thomas fans, but it's a substantial amount of them. Do I want to believe Paul actually enjoys bullying children? No. Would I be happy if he came out and said that he doesn't? Depends how genuine he seemed, but yeah, probably. But do his actions come across that way? But how is all of this relevant, you may ask? After all, aren't we supposed to separate the art from the artist? Well, to those of you thinking that, I propose to you this. Does it really surprise you that the same guy who thought, I'm gonna add a scene in my movie where a steam engine gets raped, gets a kick out of bullying children? This guy also thinks he's the world's biggest victim. Like, he added a headline when Keith was being interviewed by one of those news stations about the creator of the Shed 17 documentary being brutally beaten by a bunch of angry fans. Like, come on, man. This guy seriously thinks, like, mean comments on his videos are the end of the world. This guy is so thin-skinned, he literally can't take a bunch of 5-year-olds telling him, "You ruined my childhood!" without his butt being hurt.
Part 6. End it all.
So, suffice it to say, I didn't enjoy Project G1. I also didn't enjoy Shed 17. In fact, this entire franchise was a complete waste of time. It was entertaining enough, I guess, but I can't help but feel an overwhelming sense of shame devoting 3 whole videos to these movies. If you take anything away from any of these reviews, it'd be, don't waste your time with these. They're garbage movies with garbage animation and garbage storytelling with a garbage creator. You should value what precious time we have on this earth and not waste it on this. I continue to refuse to see these movies as comedies even after analysing the crap out of them for several hours. Before, I thought it was just because they weren't funny, but now looking at it in hindsight, Paul could not justify calling at the very least Project G1 a comedy. I think there's an argument that could be made with Shed 17 because its premise is a pretty funny idea, all things considered, and I think it has been done well in the past. Problem is, that joke doesn't really work when you've got a nearly hour-long sequel where a train gets raped and a mentally ill coach is burnt to death. The humour loses a lot of its punch, let's just say. And I know I keep focusing on the scene where Smudger gets raped, but seriously, it's such a disgusting and horrible scene, and I know it was deleted, but he still made it with the intention of it being in the video. And it's still on YouTube for the public to see. And another thing, these movies are so boring. You could halt time with how slow they are. And I wish I could do more to salvage these movies, but really, the premise was just too dumb to begin with. The only way it would work is if you didn't focus on the engines as much and focus on the drama between the human characters. Because you can actually do something with that. Interviewing more drivers and firemen and children who were around at the time and the grieving families of the engines who got turned into trains. Something. Anything to add some variety. But then it wouldn't be Thomas the Tank Engine.
A little part of me regrets not talking more about why I made these videos in the first place, so I'll take time to do that now. Also, for reference, if this sounds different to the rest of the recording, it's because I wrote this segment about a week after I recorded the voiceover in the first place, so sorry about that. But this is how I got the idea to make the Shed 17 review. I was talking with a friend about it and how it used to scare me, and they jokingly suggested I write a review for it on my channel. And after thinking, I was like, that's not actually a terrible idea. At first I wasn't actually gonna watch it out of, quote, respect for my childhood, but thought about it and decided that if I wanted to give a good review, I had to watch it. Also, I knew that respect for my childhood was a massive cope, and decided to watch it. In 2 times speed so it'd be less scary.
According to my calculations, you're a pussy. Name calling? Really? We're gonna do name calling? I'm not calling names, right? I'm just stating facts, and the fact is, you're a quivering pussy.
Yeah, I know, I'm pathetic.
But I did have to sit down and edit down the garbage movie, so I'm gonna count it. But as I did more digging, I realized that these movies and their fan base were just absolutely terrible. And the shining beacon of it all was Paul himself. Now obviously I don't know Paul personally, so I can't vouch for how he is outside of the context of internet life, but judging from interviews and his own live streams, he seems like a pretty thin-skinned and bitter man. He whines about people who don't like his movies, acts like said movies are worthy of respect while refusing to respect other people's criticisms, and has publicly mocked people with names like Thomas Fan 1, without at all considering that they're probably like a third of his age, if not more, and is responsible for making 2 train rape scenes in his movie. Yeah, I kind of forgot to mention the one that precedes Smudges, but James gets molested as well. Both were obviously deleted from the movie, but still, he only removed them because YouTube forced him to. These movies act as a shining beacon of everything I hate about shock humor. When my sister watched my Shed 17 review, she said one of the parts that most interested her was my point of the subjectivity of comedy. I think there was a missed opportunity in that segment to talk about the difference between shock humor and just generally shocking the audience. Shock humor needs to still have some sort of setup and subversion, whereas just generally being shocking doesn't.
Poem right now, if that's okay. This poem is a little bit sappy, a little bit romantic, so we'll get it out of the way now. It's called I Fuck Sluts. It's not a roll call, but thank you.
I mean, there might be some sort of subversion in that, oh, I didn't expect him to say that, but there's no setup to the joke. I really don't like that style of humor because it's just lazy and often unoriginal. Usually, I would just give these movies the coveted Not My Thing award, but after looking at the fan base and the creator, I feel no shame for ripping these movies a new one. Okay, maybe a little bit of shame. I don't know for sure if I'd say a third movie would fix anything, but if it's good enough, I'm willing to have my mind changed. Oh, and Paul, if you're watching this, before adding me to the list of those dumb children who are butthurt about my movies, maybe do some self-reflection. You are an adult, and you're on the internet. If you're too thin-skinned to hear people criticize your movie, maybe it's time to reconsider your career.
Don't you think you're being a little bit harsh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going for.
I mean, okay, it's up to you, but have you finished the video yet?
Just about to export it.
The day ends in 5 minutes.
5 minutes? It's not gonna be enough time. Think.
And another thing, these movies are so boring. You could halt time with how slow they are.
I've got it! I'm a genius. Isn't that right? Oh yeah, I hung up the call. So what now? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really apologize for how long it ended up being. I went into the video thinking it would be maybe at most 40 minutes long, and then the script ended up being 12,000 words. So, yeah. But if you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, God bless.
This undercover